Hi, my name is Lorraine Hwang, and I am the director of CIG. Like many of you, my journey with CIG did not start with the initial discussions that eventually led to CIG 1 in 2004, but somewhere in mid 2012. So, in this presentation here, I would like to provide you a snapshot of the past 15 years of CIG, who we are today, and our leadership role in the larger scientific community. But as with all stories, let's start at the beginning. In the beginning, around 2004, there was this idea. A group of researchers formed a vision, or some say a manifesto. This vision included the development of an open source software toolkit developed and maintained by a small core of developers, which was model agnostic. Software developed would implement best practices and be science driven. Many of these themes have been actively practiced throughout CIG 1, 2, and 3. These themes are ever present, and we will be revisiting them in several presentations next week. The vision at the time was articulated in an ever-evolving landscape of technological changes, driven by ever faster internet speeds, which enabled changes in paradigms in version control and enabled the open source and open science movements, and spawning some of our favorite tools we still use today. Since the inception of CIG, we have seen many of these ideas take off, aided by the third generation of version control systems and the gathering strength of the open source and open science movements amidst the reproducibility crisis and the call for fair data and software. And CIG has adapted along the way, leveraging the explosion of open source tools now available. Hence, at this juncture, we are now poised to rethink the services we provide and how we deploy them. We will hear a talk from a community member that begins that conversation. At this point, I want to switch tracks here for the next several slides and provide that snapshot of who we are today. In the past 15 years, CIG has grown from a founding community of 29 organizations to 85 institutions worldwide. We have 2 elected governance committees, the Executive Committee and the Science Steering Committee, and 8 ad hoc committees or working groups. You'll be asked later in breakout groups to provide us feedback on the structure and whether changes should be made. Our software repository has grown from 19 codes at the end of 2009 to 32 codes today. These codes have logged over 29,000 commits. Through our workshops, we have delivered over 2,500 lessons or seats. Going all virtual this year has increased our reach internationally. These workshops have changed over the years from special topic scientific workshops to workshops with essential focus on training, which includes our tutorials and hackathons. This is an area in which CIG has been a leader in delivering content for both in-person and virtual events, with the first virtual pilot tutorials in 2015 and our first entirely virtual workshop in January 2020 before it was part of the new normal. We will hear a talk from a community member that illustrates our community's leadership in building communities around scientific software. Workshops have attracted our target audience of early career researchers, but there is room for improvement in the inclusion of gender and underrepresented groups. For example, the number of geoscience doctorates awarded to underrepresented groups in 2016 was 6%, and to women, 44%. Our numbers in this meeting have shown modest increases from the aggregate numbers shown in this slide, but these numbers are still a long way from representing the demographics of the United States today. So what is the impact of these efforts? A proxy for science productivity is publications. We see steady growth in the number of publications using software that has been contributed to the CIG community. It should be noted that after 2015, only 1 new software package was added to the repository, and perhaps after 2016 is when we started raising awareness of citing software to not only enable our tracking, but to give credit to our community of developers. We also similarly see a growing trend for abstracts contributed to the AGU fall meeting. So what does all this activity translate into in terms of leadership CIG has provided to the greater community? We have provided leadership in areas which may be surprising to some of you. In governance, our bylaws have been held up as an example to others wishing to start scientific communities. Our code of conduct was developed in 2017 and adopted in 2018 and provided a resource to other communities seeking to develop their own. We have shown that the community can make the difficult decision of sunsetting a code. Many of you are aware of our leadership in the development of best practices in software development and training. These were articulated in 2016 by the SSC, led by Brad Agard. Since then, there has been an explosion of open source communities with similar efforts. We will hear talk later about the need to update and expand our practices. We have provided leadership in community building, helping early career researchers create lifelong connections through workshops, tutorials, and hackathons, and helping to build software communities. We continue benchmarking efforts. Most notably, our Dynamo working group ran a benchmarking challenge, successfully engaging 15 international teams in performance and accuracy testing of leading-edge Dynamo codes. We have participated in early discussions on credit for software, being an early adopter of software citation, and pushed for and continue to help define fair standards for software for the computational modeling community. This past May, the EC and SSC met jointly, and one of the questions we asked ourselves was, what is infrastructure? In our daily lives, we think of this as things like roads, power lines, the internet. However, in our discussions, it was clear that infrastructure was broader than this, that infrastructure is not only software or computing, but also people and policies. It is the infrastructure to support people in delivering education, outreach, training, and the people to maintain and support our software. This software, our codes, repositories, computing, and providing recognition for this work. An interesting discussion for our community is whether this includes a software registry and data repository. And it is the policies, the processes that guide our activities through our bylaws, how we incorporate diversity, equity, inclusion, our best practices and guidelines. So we need to ask ourselves going forward, what are the activities in CIG4 should we pursue in supporting people and software? What are the policies to guide them? How do these align with our strategic objectives in leadership, science, infrastructure, outreach, and computing? Are there strategic partnerships we should be pursuing? Are there current and new initiatives that should be expanded or pursued in building capacity for our community to advance our understanding of Earth dynamics? As technology and the climate in which we have evolved is constantly undergoing change, is there a need to re-examine our policies and how we do business? I look forward to exploring these questions with you next week. In closing, I would like to acknowledge the prior directors, Mike Ernest, Louise Kellogg, and Magali Billen, who have provided the leadership for CIG in its first 15 years. And to many of you in the community who are our community heroes, you who have helped to create the vision and whose contributions have been key to our successes.